Chad Butler had a traumatic experience where he had to navigate the complexities of care, but he did it with grace, he did it with his family, he did it with his team. So we want to get into our first speaker, and it's my honor to introduce my brother and my friend, Chad Butler.
Love you, homie. Thanks. All right. Oh, the mic works awesome. I'm not a professional speaker, so you're just going to have to deal with my big notes and my cotton mouth. So thank you. Echo Colin's sentiments on how much work goes into this. I'm very grateful and welcoming to everyone that's here. So as Colin stated, I'm Chad Butler, and I appreciate you all thinking of my story and how it epitomizes forward together. That theme really sums up how me and my family were able to persevere and thrive over the last 4 years since my injury. So I'm excited to tell my story today. Here we go. On Sunday, January 7th of 2018, I was bedridden from an extremely painful herniated disc in my lower back, L3 and L4 for the clinicians in the room. I was by myself that day as my family was coming home from Kansas City. Around midday, I began to feel better and decided to grab lunch, so I went to the kitchen. As I sat down at my kitchen bar, I began to have extraordinarily tight pain in my lower back and my side. As I stood up to adjust and get into a comfortable position, I heard a loud pop, a snap. I immediately collapsed down to the ground in excruciating pain, screaming. I knew something was definitely wrong. Fight or flight kicked in. I army crawled over to my bedroom about 20 feet away, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. My sister Kaylee met me in the emergency room and quickly became the advocate I needed. See, I was totally incoherent from all the painkillers and narcotics I received on the ambulance. I was also hallucinating, so all the clinicians that would come in my room were dressed as the Fruit of the Loom characters, the grapes, the bananas. You get the point. I was in no capacity to be making decisions. And it's important that my sister was there because what most people do know or don't know is that it's protocol to not admit patients from the ED to inpatient with back pain for many reasons, but it's not the protocol. So she had to fight like hell to get me into the ED, and her stubbornness is why I was admitted to inpatient. Once admitted, I continued to complain of pressure building in my stomach, and I felt like I had to use the restroom. Every time a nurse would come to assist me, they would help me stand. They would walk me to the restroom about 10 feet away, and nothing would happen. Each time they did that over and over, it became harder and harder for them. And it was during these episodes one of my nurses realized and remembered a class she took, specifically on a condition, a rare spinal cord injury called Cotta-Aquinas syndrome. That rare condition is what she remembered, and I was producing similar symptoms to what they talked about in that textbook. What that nurse realized is the nerves in my lower body were shutting down due to the pressure on my spinal cord, and if she didn't act, I was going to be paralyzed for the rest of my life. She ordered an MRI, and for the next morning got me slotted for surgery. A crazy side story, but the pressure on my stomach was so great, it actually produced 40 ounces of fluid. The normal bladder can hold about 8 ounces. And so if she did not order that cath and get me there, I could have had serious trauma, permanent trauma, even sepsis. After stabilizing, I finally felt at ease. It was the first time in 5 months I didn't have severe pain. Plus the fact I was going to get surgery the next day, I was actually in good spirits. See, I thought what was going to happen, I was going to wake up the next morning, get my MRI, go get my surgery, recover in the hospital for a couple of days, and run home pain-free for the first time in 5 months. What was actually happening is my nerves below my belly button were going dark. The next morning, I received my MRI, which confirmed the disc between L3 and L4 had crushed my spinal cord. I was immediately taken for surgery. Following a successful discectomy and laminectomy, I was sent back to my room to recover. During my first post-op, with my physicians, they began to talk to Gina and I about the layout of our home, which I thought was unusual questions because I was going home soon. What I realized is what they were asking me was how many stairs I had, where my bed was located, how I was going to be living. And also what dawned on me at that point in time was I was not okay. Surgery did not fix everything. I was not going to run home. I was not going home. and that was my first real dark moment. After 5 days in the hospital, I was fortunate to use our Cerner, I do want to note, that afternoon I was pretty depressed with my family. We were crying, but I had 2 visitors come by. And in fact, it was the 2 visitors that I had stop by that weren't my family. And it was Colin Corey and Ryan Kreinbring, 2 of my fellow Cerner associates. It was a brief visit. They both came in, reassured me that they had my back. They would cover anything needed for our clients. And that was a small but mighty gesture that gave me and my family the hope that everything would be okay. After 5 days in the hospital, I was fortunate to use our Cerner client contacts who assisted in my discharge planning, which landed me at Encompass's inpatient rehab facility in Franklin, where I would spend the next 3 weeks learning how to live with a wheelchair, learning how to walk with a walker, learning how to do all of my activities of daily living, all while being supported by my coworkers and boss, Tim Carlson, who allowed me to recover and focus on my family. The goals during my 3 weeks while at Encompass were simple. Learn to walk with a walker. I was not going home in a wheelchair. And learn to do my activities of daily living without support. I was not going to be a burden to my family. I worked my butt off while I was there and often got sent back to my room because I was working too hard. See, their goals were to do the bare minimum to get me discharged. My goals were to walk, and they weren't going to stop me. It was that mental toughness, along with a ton of support from friends and family and coworkers, that got me discharged in early February, where I walked out of there with no wheelchair, a walker, and fully sufficient with life's little tasks. When I got home, thank you. When I got home, I continued to do daily physical therapy. The grind was exhausting, the depression was sometimes too much to bear, but I kept a positive attitude. And over the course of 2018 and 2019, I continued to hit major milestones. I moved from walker to crutches. I learned how to drive again. I moved from crutches to a cane. And I eventually got rid of both of my ankle-foot orthotics as my foot drop had become manageable. And by the August of 2019, I was able to walk fully unassisted, which was a huge milestone for me. And I was able to enjoy a lot of the little things that I enjoy in my life. It was around that time I noticed something missing. Growing up an athlete, I developed a competitive fire that continued into adulthood. I was always finding ways to feed my competitive hunger. I didn't have external competition during rehab. It was just me and my thoughts. And I really missed that. So in September of 2019, after being cleared by my doctors, I decided to do something with that competitive fire. I signed up for an ultra marathon, but me being a little left of center and a little crazy, I signed up for a 50-mile ultra marathon in Bryce Canyon, Utah, about 7,000 feet elevation higher than where I would do all my training in Nashville. Pretty smart. I went from not being able to run at all to slowly, day by day, running more and more. And if I had a DJ here, I'd cue the 80s. If this was an 80s movie, I'd cue the montage where you'd see me Rocky style training in the woods with my trainer Mick, and he'd be telling me to get up. But it's not how it went. So you're gonna have to visualize how awkward I looked running with braces on my legs like Forrest Gump, falling down often, but eventually ditching those braces to running free on the roads and trails of Middle Tennessee. Like all good 80s movies, this one has a happy ending. I completed that Bryce Canyon Ultra Marathon, 54.5 miles in 11 hours and 30 minutes. Crossing the finish line with my sister Kaylee, who's there from the beginning. While my journey has been uncommon, how we conquered the challenges were not. It took a lot of guts, a little bit of smarts, a positive attitude, and a whole army of people who supported me and my family for the last 4 years so we could move forward together. To close, here are the 3 things I want you to take away from my experience. Being mentally tough with a positive attitude is the foundation for success. I would not be where I am if I wasn't, and if I didn't have a positive attitude. Love, support, and compassion of community and coworkers will allow you and others to do great things. And lastly, in order to be great, we must continue to learn from the past, but stay focused on the future, regardless of what challenges lie ahead. I truly appreciate all the love and support Cerner gave me and my family, and I appreciate you listening to my story. Thank you.
We appreciate that, Chad.
Appreciate you.
Love you.
If that story doesn't pull at your heartstrings, you're Ryan Kreinbring. Those are my feelings.
Wow, Chad, thank you for sharing such an inspirational and really compelling story. At the end of the day, it takes a lot of guts to tell a story like that, to put the human face on incredible resiliency.